Okay, everybody, we're live. We're live on Facebook, and we're about to be joined by my favorite person in the whole world, Dr. Bruce Lipton. So wonderful to see you again. How are you doing? Welcome here.
Lynn, I am so excited to be with you. Every time we get together, it's like a highlight of the day for me. And your beauty and your intelligence, which is so amazing, because I listen to you and learn so much, and I so appreciate everything you offer. Thank you.
Oh, right back at you. And I'm sure I don't need to introduce Dr. Lipton, but if you by any chance don't know who he is somebody who was minding his own business, faculty of the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine, when he made some extraordinary discoveries about epigenetics and the fact that DNA is not destiny. And ever since that, he's written 3 amazing books: The Biology of Belief, Spontaneous Evolution, The Honeymoon Effect. He lectures all over the world. He helps everybody understand that their destiny is in their own hands. So welcome, Dr. Lipton, and we're going to have a great conversation back and forth about achieving inner evolution. So let me start by just asking you a question. What do you mean by being able to change inner evolution? Because we all really do believe that genes are destiny.
Well, the biggest story comes down to knowledge is power. And everyone goes, yeah, we all know knowledge is power. But let me put it in a better way for us now. A lack of knowledge is a lack of power. And a misperception, by definition, is a lack of knowledge. And now I have to say, we have been for the last 50 years operating under 2 very important misperceptions. A, the one you brought up, genes control our life. This is totally false. And the second one is actually the idea of a Newtonian universe that's split into physical matter and invisible energy in 2 different realms, and they don't communicate, and whatever's physical should be, interfered with by something that's physical. So that's why we have pharmaceutical drugs. We have a physical body. You want to fix it, you have to give it something physical. So those are the drugs. And that's an outdated and disempowering illusion, because it turns out it's energy and consciousness that shape the world. And let me just emphasize it, so it's not so weird sounding. It's consciousness. Our mind is creating this. Well, quantum physics is, to me, the most valid science on the planet. Even before it was fully understood, the theoretical ideas that were presented have all been actually realized, that this is such an amazing science, quantum physics. And I say, so what's relevant about this valid science? I go, the first principle in quantum physics is consciousness is creating our life experiences. And, that's, that's so new age. I go, no, that's about as hardcore science as there is. And this consciousness, and this is why I love working with you, Lynn, because your job has been raising consciousness around the world. And that is how we're going to evolve, is not physically evolve, but we're going to evolve with consciousness. And so the knowledge that you're providing for people is empowering, and I like to do the same.
Wonderful. And, you brought up something so important, which is this whole idea of quantum physics being the most important, the most successful science, and probably the only real science now, because that whole Newtonian idea that there are 2 sciences, the science of the large and the science of the tiny, and they have 2 different sets of rules, is completely outdated too. We now know that there's essentially one rule book for all of life, that quantum physics is science now. And we now are seeing quantum effects in photosynthesis, one of the most important processes on the planet. The reason we're alive is photosynthesis. And we now know in that crucible of change within every plant is a quantum process. We now know that some of the biggest molecules in the universe can operate according to quantum effects. So quantum science is science, but also it's the science of the body and healing. And that's what makes it so interesting when we talk about DNA, because we think of DNA as, and we think of our bodies as being, this matter of chemicals and electrical signaling, if we're lucky. Mostly we think of it as just being meat and set meat. And what we are now finding is that it's not that at all, that it is energy and that it is subject to all sorts of other energetic effects, particularly our thoughts. I love one great statistic that I want to share with you, which is a study of the outcome among patients given placebos. Okay, so these were patients with illnesses given placebos, and I believe they all had the same illness. I think it was carpal tunnel syndrome or something like that. But one half of them were told this medicine is really going to work, real positive thing by a doctor, and it's by a doctor, and they were told this is going to fix it all. And the other half were told, well, I don't know, we're going to just try it. It might work, it might not. And believe it or not, there was a 61% difference in outcome between those patients, 61%. So there were something like 69% of the people who were given the positive diagnosis and positive prognosis got better, compared to 39% who were told maybe it'll work. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about belief. We're talking about mind. We're talking about thoughts affecting the body and just feeling confident. And that blows everything out of the water when we start thinking about DNA, right? So
well, that's the old story, and we all were raised on that story. Yes, DNA turns on and off and controls the character of your life. And I say, well, how does life work? And people say, DNA turns on and off. And I say, yeah, but how does that work? And everybody goes, well, that's what I was told. I go, yeah, so what? I said, how does it work? And the answer is it doesn't work that way at all. DNA is the equivalent of a blueprint. It is what is used to make the proteins of the body, which are very complex molecules. So the DNA is a pattern. It's actual blueprint to make molecules. And I go, well, significance is, well, if you go into an architect's office and she's working on a blueprint, you ask her, you say, hey, is your blueprint on or off? And she would look at you and go, well, are you crazy? There's no on and off to a blueprint. And I go, that's exactly right. The genes do not turn themselves on and off. They're controlled by signals from the environment. And this is the foundation of the new science, epigenetics. This is what my research revealed back in 1967. And ever since then, I've been following it. And it really comes into the work that you've done as well, Lynn, because I want to give a quote here that from my hero in science, Albert Einstein, but it emphasizes the nature of Lynn's work, because the quote is, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. I go, that is a fact of quantum physics. I say the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. A particle is matter. The field is energy. So basically saying the energy field is the sole governing agency of matter. And I go, well, that's exactly the whole idea of it. And I go, well, then where's this energy field coming from? And it turns out the brain is this wonderful device that translates everything into energy. You might smell a cake, but the brain doesn't have smell. It has vibrational energy. You might see that cake, but I say there's no vision in the brain. It's all turned into vibrational energy. Everything is turned into energy. And so our thoughts are emanating from this device. And you go, so what about my thoughts? I say, well, very interesting fact is that we would put wires on a person's head and say, oh, electroencephalograph, I will read your brain activity inside your head. And everybody goes, yeah, my thoughts are inside my head. I go, but there's a newer device called magnetoencephalograph, not EEG, but it's called MEG. I go, what's that? I said, it reads brain function. I goes, yeah, so what? I go, the probe is out here. I go, what does that mean? Well, the answer is your thoughts are not contained in your head. You're broadcasting your energy fields. And these fields not only affect you in the personal level, but they influence everything in the field around you as well. And this turns us right back to the quantum physics. It says, yeah, the consciousness, the energy field is what's creating our life experiences. And so the field becomes the big story here because that's the invisible stuff. And your consciousness is generating that field. And I go, so what's the relevance? Well, you brought up, Lynn, about the placebo effect. Well, what was the consciousness of the person who was told that this drug is going to heal them? Well, the authority, the doctor said, I'm going to get healed. Oh, guess what? The thought of that healed them because the drug could be a sugar pill. That's not, the placebo. It's a sugar pill. I go, oh, so positive thinking controlled our health. I go, yes, that's 100% true. The field, your thoughts, your energy is controlling your health. And I go, but what we've left out of the story is, what about negative thinking? I go, what do you mean? I go, well, everyone talks about positive thinking, placebo effect, it heals you. And I go, yeah, but guess what? Negative thinking is equally powerful, but works in the opposite direction. Meaning, with positive thinking, you could heal yourself of any disease. With negative thinking, you can die and create any disease. You can create your own death just because you believe you're going to die. And all of a sudden I say, well, then it's the power of belief, positive or negative, that is shaping the world. And I go, well, this is why when we look at people's beliefs and they do an assessment of, they find out over 60% of the beliefs that we're manifesting every day are negative and disempowering and self-sabotaging thoughts that we've acquired, such as, I'm a victim of my genes. That's a belief. And somebody says, yeah, well, I'm going to die of cancer because it's running in my family, and they get cancer, and then they find out there's no gene that causes cancer. I'm saying this on Lynn's show. I will have to emphasize that there is not one gene that if you have this gene, you have cancer. Genes are correlated with cancer. Genes are not causing cancer. This is why half the women that have the breast cancer gene, BRCA2, half the women never get the cancer, but they all possess the gene. So where's the point? I said the gene didn't cause it. It was a lifestyle that was not in harmony that ultimately activated what is called a cancer gene. I said, so what do you mean? So if you change your thoughts, you can get rid of cancer? I go, yeah, well, that's what spontaneous remission is all about. And so I'm stepping on Lynn's field here because this is where this emanation of thought, and we don't see it, and we don't, in our history, that's just thoughts and feelings. I go, those are the controls that are manifesting your life, your thoughts and your feelings. Your feelings are the translation of the energy into sensation. So your feelings are like a compass. They're telling you whether you're going toward more life or to less life. I'm talking quite a lot here, Lynn, but I just want to give up one little story that makes a point for me, and that is this. Mm-hmm. A snail comes out of an egg. There's no mother or father snail. I say, yeah. And now it's in the world. I say, how does it know what to do? There was no teaching or anything. The point is very simple. It has the equivalent of an energy gauge on the dashboard. There's only one gauge on the entire dashboard of the snail, and it's energy. And I go, so what is relevant? I said, as it moves through its world, it always moves toward higher energy because energy is life. And so it's guided by the compass that says, oh, this is more energy. And it goes that way. And if it comes to a plant, should I eat this or not? Well, plants have energy to them. And so the snail reads the energy. Does this energy of this plant make me have more energy? Or does it take away my energy? Because the energy level can be enhanced or decreased based on what's going on. So I say, so the whole life of the snail, no training, no teachers, no school, follow the energy. That's what the whole story was. And the energy, as I said, are feelings. And then all of a sudden you realize most of us have been programmed not to really pay that much attention to the feelings, and I say, well, that is the compass. And the field is translated into feelings. And that's why now I turn it over to my dear partner, Lynn, because she's Miss Field over there.
I love that story of the snail, Bruce. That's new information for me, that's for sure. That it's all it's doing is got that little dashboard of energy. But everything you said is so true and applicable to human beings too. I was fascinated by the book of Kelly Turner called Radical Remission, where she studied cancer patients, the ones who survived against all the odds, the ones that were given up as no-hopers. And she found those who went into so-called remission, as in cure, had 9 common factors in the way they dealt with their disease. And when I looked at the 9, there were only 2 that related to changes to their physical body. And that was changing their diet and taking supplements and maybe herbs. Everything else was about thought in some way, taking control. And it was also about community, having a strong community. I'm going to get to that later about how that is one of the biggest energetic forces we have is collective thoughts. But I found that so interesting that the people who changed were the people who changed their thoughts. They're the ones who got healed. And something else that you said before about the women with the BRCA gene, the breast cancer patients, whether they got cancer or not, they actually looked at that with the Women's Health Initiative study. This was really interesting. I'm sure you know all about this. They combed through that data, and that was a big study of hundreds of thousands of women. They wanted to show for all time that HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is safe and doesn't cause cancer. But so many women who were taking HRT were developing cancer, they had to stop the study. So lots of subsequent scientists have been combing over that data because it's a goldmine of information. And of course, a lot of the drug company sponsored studies are trying to negate that study too. But anyway, those who have gone through it, one study found, they wanted to see whether or not genetics and familial history of breast cancer predisposed women to getting breast cancer. And they found, just as you said, Bruce, no, the only thing that predisposed them to breast cancer, or the primary thing, was HRT. So it was that epigenetic thing of taking something outside the body that caused the expression of cancer. So I want to give you also a DNA story that I think is really interesting, and it's one of many that I collect with my Power of 8 groups and my Power of 8 masterclass. You know, I work with people in Power of 8 groups, small group intention. And I've seen now hundreds, if not thousands, of cases of so-called genetic diseases reverse. I give you a wonderful example of that. Lisa goes to a place called the Sanctuary for the first time. Now, she has a so-called incurable genetic disease called alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. So it's a deficiency of a certain enzyme that can cause terrible problems with the liver and lungs. And her doctors for years were telling her she's looking at a liver replacement eventually, and liver failure. And she had a swollen liver, swollen spleen, constantly going to the doctor. So she goes to this place called the Sanctuary, which learned how to do Power of 8 groups from me and started running their own little Power of 8 group there. And so she decides to go, and she participates for the first time. And I always tell people they don't have to do this for hours. You don't have to meditate for hours. You just do it together as a group for 10 minutes. So she gets together with this group for 10 minutes, gets the healing. That night, she feels a lot of energy going up and down her arm. And she just feels really, really different. And so she goes to the doctor a few months later, and lo and behold, she finds that her liver is normal, her spleen is normal. She has 2 consultants who have written her letters saying, you are healed, essentially. You are normal now. That was after one little group thought intention, and also her openness, her belief, hey, I'll give this a try. And that's what can give us some sort of idea about the power of thoughts to change DNA and turn off what was supposedly a genetic disease in 10 minutes.
I call it epigenetics.
Absolutely. That's right. Exactly.
People, we have to go back and recognize that, yes, I mentioned the fact, no, genes are blueprints, they can't turn on and off. But then we have to say, so what is it that ultimately controls the genes? And the answer is the environment. And this is how animals evolved over the history of our planet. As the environments change, the animals conform to environments. It's not an accident that, polar bears are not in Africa. Polar bears are in the Arctic, and roses don't grow in Antarctica. And I go, because each organism fits the environment. I say, well, how did that happen? And the answer is the new science of epigenetics reveals there's a lockstep interaction between the environment and the organism. And as the environment changes, organisms have to either adapt or die out. And if they adapt, then they survive. And that's how life is in every part of the entire planet, from the frozen ice of the Arctic, to the Sahara Desert. There's all life forms everywhere because it's adaptation. So I say, yeah, but so it's the environment. And so just quickly to help people understand that, well, people are talking about, yeah, that's the environment out here. I go, no, you see, the cells inside the body can't see this environment. My liver cell can't tell where the hell I am right now. I say, yeah, but it has to adjust itself to the environment. So I say, how does the liver cell know what the environment is? And I go, this is the issue. Between the environment and the cells is consciousness. Consciousness interprets the environment and then sends chemical signals, hormones, growth factors, and all those regulatory agents into the body to adjust the body to the environmental situation. Well, that's cool, except if you have a misperception of the environment and you read the environment incorrectly, then what's going to happen is you're going to send signals that are not in harmony with that environment. And so if you live in an environment where you think there's threats, or you're not secure and unsafe, then you will automatically, your brain will take that picture of the environment, translate it into chemistry, and get you in a fight or flight, mode here, which is a protection response, which compromises growth. And I go, yeah, but maybe there was nothing out there in the environment except your belief of that. And I go, we're back to placebo, nocebo. And the idea is your belief is controlling this. The positive belief, I can heal anything. The negative belief, I'm going to die of everything. And it all comes down to, how did it happen? The brain is the interface between the environment and the cells, but the brain is programmed from experiences. And one of the big ones, and I really need to bring it up here because I love your, what doctors don't tell you stuff, because I'm very happy to hear that. But what I want people to understand is this. Brain is a computer. It's absolute, the most fantastic computer that humans have ever known. It's more powerful than any computer a human can create at this moment. And the brain is really a device that reads environments and interprets it. But it does so as a computer. And I go, point of this. Let's say I got a brand new computer today. And in the old days, you get a brand new computer, didn't come with a program. Okay, got a brand new computer, open it up, push start, boots up, screen lights up, and I go, now do something. It's like, oh, wait, I can't do anything. Why? Oh, first you put the programs in, then you can use the computer. And during the first 7 years of a child's life, the brain is operating at a state of hypnosis called theta. And I go, so what is this for? Because how many rules does a person need to live in a family and a community on the planet? I say hundreds of thousands of rules. You'd have to deal with everything. I go, well, how's an infant going to learn all those rules? They can't read the book. They can't go to school. They can't. I go, no, they don't have to. First 7 years, brain is in theta hypnosis. They observe the behaviors of others around them. The child especially focuses on the mother and father and sees the whole thing about what relationships are all about. Why? Programming. The infant is just programming these behaviors. Okay. Well, these behaviors then become the functional subconscious brain below consciousness. They're operating back there all the time. The reason I want to bring this up right now is simply this, is that in that first 7 years in a normal family, that when someone's sick, where do they go? Oh, they go to the doctor. I go, so what is the program? Well, by 7 years, what have you seen? And anytime somebody's sick, you go to the doctor. I say, so yeah, but what did you learn? The answer is the doctor provides the truth. Why? Well, what the heck do I know? The doctor is the specialist. So when the doctor says something, those words become truth to the system. It's a program. It just says whatever they are. So the prognosis that a doctor gives is actually shaping the future of the patient. Why? Because the brain is accepting the fact that, yes, the doctor's professional, I'm not. Doctor says these things are going to happen to me, and as I die, and I go, then what? And I say, well, the brain will engage them because that's the program. And this is why it's so important that we have to understand about the nature of the medical community. Their words have so much power for the people who grew up with medical doctors as their, developmental period. And that all of a sudden, then the patient doesn't realize that whatever the doctor just said now has a program that's activated. Oh, you're going to die in 3 months. Oh, okay. A patient can die in 3 months and then end up dying not because of the so-called cancer. There wasn't any reason other than the fact that it was 3 months, and that's when they died. This becomes to me so important, and this is why the power of 8, changing the consciousness, the field story that Lynn brought to the public in a big way is so critical for us, because we have been programmed. And if you grew up with that way, your conscious mind say, no, I don't really care what the doctor said. I'm going to be healthy. And I say, that's your conscious mind. That's your creative mind. Guess what? It only operates 5% of the time. Your life is 95% coming from the program, and you don't know it at all because it's automatic. And if you came from a program where doctors were the health provider, then anything the doctor says, by that definition, becomes your absolute truth because you bought that as a program. And this is what we need to undo a bit, because, hey, I used to be in a medical school. I used to be a professor there, I want to tell you something. It's the damn pharmaceutical companies' money and influence that shapes the curriculum in the medical school. We never even talked about energy in medical school. They didn't even talk about diet in medical school. It's like, how can you understand life? And the answer is, it's all paid for by an agency that depends on you taking a drug for every little thing that you feel that is something wrong, because you're programmed by the belief system to do that. And I want to thank my dear friend Lynn and her husband Brian, because together they have been trying to awaken the world to the story I'm talking to you about. And it's important because I want you to have your power. It's your power. And if you give somebody else that option to take their power, then it's not yours anymore. Now you just bought somebody else's program. And there's an old saying that for 400 years that explains all of this, and nobody paid attention to it. And it came from the Jesuits, and they said a simple factual statement that science now is 100% factual, and that is, give me a child until it is 7, and I will show you the man. What did they know? Whatever programs that you got before age 7, 95% of your life is coming from that program. That's what science now recognizes. They saw it too. Are you living your life, or are you living the program that you got? Well, unfortunately, without any awareness of it, then 95% of your life is actually the program. And then you struggle because your conscious one's wishes and desires and the subconscious program may not offer it. And then you got struggle, and get out of the struggle. And to do that, hey, read Lynn's book and also understand what the power of 8 is all about, how you can change the field. So that's my little soapbox blurby. I'll stop.
Well, I totally agree with you, Bruce, on all things medical. I actually run a course. I just ran it this past autumn for health professionals, including doctors, which is called Become a Better Healer, because I try to program them to use much more positive language and to get rid of things like prognoses. And I got the idea for doing that course because I had my own health challenge about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was so appalled by the languaging that doctors, but not only doctors, other healthcare professionals, a lot of alternative practitioners too, were using things like it's going to be a long and painful journey for you to get better. Or somebody once said to me, you're a shadow of your former self. And I had to stop them and say, what do you think that's going to do to me right now? You know, do you think that's going to be a healing statement? You know, people just don't, they're not conscious of it themselves because they have been themselves programmed with a bully culture, which is modern medicine. So I totally agree with you about that. And of course, all of the placebo effects studies, I mean, show that what you believe is going to happen to you is absolutely critical. One great study by Ted Kapchuk from Harvard University had 2 groups of patients. And this was carpal tunnel syndrome. And he gave one of them a pill and the others got acupuncture. And about a third of the group of 300-400 had such severe side effects they took to their beds. But the majority got better, particularly with the acupuncture. But here was the kicker of the study. The pills were cornstarch and the acupuncture was sham acupuncture. So nobody received anything. It was totally their beliefs that dictated whether they got better or they got worse from the so-called drugs. So that gives us a big, big hint about healing and affecting our DNA. And one of the things that I've been doing now for several decades is playing around with group intention in both my big intention experiments and Power of 8 groups. And one of the things I was really interested in relating to health and DNA and expression of DNA came from Dr. Leo Gallen, the very well-known integrative practitioner from New York. And he called it 4 pillars of healing. So he talked about diet and exercise, supplements, and detoxing. Those were the first 3, essentially. But the 4th one, and essentially the biggest, was community. And that is one thing that I've really found that is really underappreciated and possibly the most powerful mechanism we have for reprogramming that negative mindset, those, majority of thoughts we have that are negative and disempowering and cause ill health. One of the big things is community. There have been so many studies showing that we need to belong more than we need to breathe, essentially. We need to live in community. And they've done some studies looking at community effects on so-called genetic diseases. So for instance, this great study on depression, they took 2 groups of people, a batch of Filipinos who had genetic whatever that gene was that predisposed them to depression, and a group of Americans with the same. And they looked at them and they found that even though the Americans had a lesser gene for depression, they were less likely to get depression. They were more depressed than the Filipinos. Why? Because the Filipinos live much more in communal types of societies where it's big extended family. There's a lot of communal connection and support. And that support prevented those genes from turning on. So what I feel is there are 2 things that are really important here. And one is your thoughts, but those thoughts can be changed, I've found, in small groups. You've talked about early programming. One of the things that we've done most recently, I've done it with my husband, Brian, who wrote a book called The Untrue Story of You and developed a whole mechanism for understanding how to heal your past, essentially. And he did it because of his own past with a very verbally abusive dad. But we have found that intention, because thought and belief is so powerful in the body, it also can deal with that programming. And I do a lot of retro intention, not only in that course, but I do some in my Power of 8 Intention Masterclass to show people how to essentially reprogram themselves. You don't change what happened, you change your power and your interpretation of what happened. But you take back your power, essentially, which is a really important element in the human spirit. So for me, community, Power of 8 groups are the way I express it. And I teach that in my year-long course, the Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. But I feel that is a way to reprogram yourself. I've seen it with so many people. The woman, Andrea, in my course this past year, she was a quiet little person who never felt like anybody would listen to her. She felt unheard, and she felt not deserving of anything, including intention. But with the power of the group, and one of the great things about it is you're not only getting intention for yourself, but 7/8 of the time you're intending for other people. That altruistic tendency is one of those positive things that Bruce talked about before, about positive thoughts. There's something about doing things for other people. We were also meant to do that too in our human experience. Something about that is so healing that I find that oftentimes people who are stuck, the act of doing for someone else or intending for someone else heals the healer himself. So I think the communal aspect of all of this is a real healing mechanism. And one of the things that helps to reprogram that internal and external life. Now, you've talked about that in some of your recent courses, Bruce. And I think you've got one now you're talking about inner evolution, right?
Yes. Well, the whole idea is this. We've had life experiences, and our life experiences are recorded. And we record them at every level, from emotional level to physical level. And these are like recordings. And unfortunately, these recordings become part of programming. Because if something was scary and it scared you then, and that was when you were an infant, it could scare you right now. Again, the same thing. I mean, a person who, I tell a story. There's two kids grow up next door to each other, and in one yard, the mother and the baby and the kid, there's a kid, are in the yard, and a snake comes across the yard, and the mother's so freaked out with snakes, she starts screaming and all that stuff like that, and that kid is watching the snake and all of that. And I say, and the snake slithers through into the next yard, but the mother there, she's a biologist, a zoologist, and she sees the snake, and she shows her son who's in the yard, look, the snake, this is so wonderful, picks up the snake and holds it and shows him the snake and everything. And I go, so those are two different experiences, two different kids with two different experiences. I say, now they're 30 years old, they're walking down the street, a snake slithers across. I'll tell you what one kid's going to do, he's going to go, oh, this. But the other kid's going to look at it and go, oh, that's okay. And I go, that behavior was an experience that has lingered on and programmed them forever point after that. So the idea of the snake had two different images for two different people. This is how we experience the world. And this is why the first 7 years is so critical in this experiencing. But then we can tie in the story of the snail. I say, what does the snail do? I say, well, the snail, we're going for higher energy. And I go, so how do you do that? And I say, well, you seek the things that give you higher energy, the things that good vibes. Oh, I love that. Gives me good vibes. People give good vibes. There are people who you're around, you feel more energy with than people other people that when they're around, you don't feel that energy. In fact, some people come around, you actually feel you lose energy, good vibes, bad vibes, energy levels. When you put yourself into the community of a small group and they're all in harmony with each other, then that means you as an individual in the middle of a field of harmonic energy, meaning they're in harmony with you, boost your energy. And you get higher energy, and you're much more capable of dealing with things. If you're in a regular world and there are people surrounding you, some people have good energy, bad energy, I say, well, that sort of cancels each other out. So a group is a destination. A group is where I go to get higher energy, and higher energy is more vitality, more life. And it gives you an opportunity to think more clearly, because when we're in stress here, and this is a very important point, when we're in stress hormones shut off the conscious thinking brain. I go, why? Because it's a slow processor. It doesn't process that fast. And if, let's say your car is going out of control on a skid, and you stay in the conscious brain, it would be something like this. Oh, that. I say, but if you connect to the subconscious brain, then guess what? You have automatic behavior, instant. It's 1,000,000 times more powerful, a computer, the subconscious. So the moment you start to get out of control, guess what? You are automatically hitting the brakes, the gas, steering, turning, and doing everything, because that's the fast way of doing it. So the problem is this: the more stress you're under, the less you're processing from creative thinking, because the stress hormones are reducing this. And if you start to reduce this stress, then you become more clear and working with your conscious brain. And that's the one where you can control the rest of the system with, when it's working. But as I said, for the average person, about 5% of the day is when you're absolutely operating from that conscious side. It's the best part of the day, in fact. But getting in a group puts you in an environment that enhances that energy and allows you, that more powerful, positive growth aspect, which gives you more consciousness and more ability to work with yourself, I think, than when you shut yourself down because stress is on you at that point.
Absolutely. And, as I say, I find over and over again, when I'm dealing with people who are stuck or are super stressed, oftentimes I will just say to them, get off of yourself. Start intending for, Diane over here, who's got more money problems than you, or whatever. And actually, it's an RX for that person themselves, because as soon as they start focusing on someone else, something miraculous happens inside people. And I've been observing altruism for a while. And of course, that's really antithetical to, you and I both grew up in what was so-called the me generation, where people were focused on themselves. Even the whole idea of self-help, I don't like, because it focuses so much on, it's all about me, 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 me. And what I've found is over and over again, other help seems to be more strengthening and more helpful for people who have been so stuck for so long. Like that woman, Andrea, when she suddenly started doing intention for other people, she suddenly realized, actually, I like helping other people, but they also like helping me. So suddenly it validated her that she was worthy of getting intention. But the other thing that seems to be so important, and particularly, lockdown really, really exacerbated this, which is isolation. We live such isolated lives now, and we have done, and that was even worse through all of these, with the years of COVID. And this is so dangerous for us. Scientists recognize it. I love one scientist recently said, if we were animals in a zoo, it should say, should not live in isolation. And that's so true. We need to be connected. We need and desire and need to be part of community. So I'm going to suggest that we take some questions from people, Bruce. But before I wanted to just ask, I know with your new course, is that available now, by the way?
Which course being that one? The evolution
course? Gaia course. I think it's about inner evolution.
Oh yeah, that's on Gaia for a while. Matter of fact, your friend of my friend Greg, Braden and I are going another week or two up to Gaia to do another production on resilience, striving through this time of chaos. So a new one is going to be forthcoming from that as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I want to, before we leave, I want to hear a little bit about that because it'll be available soon. Wonderful. And Greg, my dear friend too, we are, I guess if you're the two amigos, I'm the amiga. So
Yeah,
let's take some questions. Okay. And by the way, we have to really thank Bruce because he's been dealing with all kinds of extreme weather over there in California. So it's wonderful to have you here.
I'm so excited that we're here because this is there's no power here. I fortunately had solar power, so I'm running off of that, and I'm thanking God that the internet is still working here because we're in a very strange weather situation here in Northern California.
Oh, golly, I know. And it seems like all over the world right now, Bruce. Okay, David says, what are your thoughts on the potential of healing chronic diseases such as cancer using focused gravity fields? Any thought about that, Bruce?
And actually, I really can't answer on focused gravity fields about that. I don't know actually what that means, focused gravity fields, but recognizing that we already mentioned this, that cancer is not due to the genes. Cancer is due to a perception of the environment that is not in harmony with life. Changing those perceptions can eliminate the cancer. And I say, well, how fast can I do that? And Lynn and I have a dear friend, Anita Moorjani, and she has a book, Dying to Be Me. And if anybody has a cancer issue, boy, I recommend this book because she went through 4 years of cancer and was on the last day of her life, she went into a coma. She was on machine support. She was so emaciated that the lumps of cancer could be seen through her skin. She was on her last day. Her oncologist called her family and said, she's going to die. So you better come here now. And she had an out-of-body experience. And what did she end up doing was resolving a conflict with her father about love and relationship. And that was out of body. And then she had a choice in those people that have out-of-body experience. You want to stay here in the outer world or you want to go back? And she went back because her husband, Danny, was taking care of her 2 years. And she said, oh, if I don't go back, he's going to get sick. So she went back into this body and she woke up. And guess what? She said, I don't need the machines anymore. The machines, they didn't have to support her anymore. That all of a sudden she wanted to eat. And it was like, what? All this was, the doctors didn't understand. The cancers disappeared within 2 weeks. There was no more cancer that they could find. They kept looking. She kept saying this cancer is gone. They said it can't happen that way. She was on her last day of life and turned it around by changing her perception. And this is the most important key that I really can offer in regard to how would I deal with a cancer situation. The answer is it's a consciousness that is driving it, and it requires a change in consciousness to take it in the other direction. I think that's what I would look for in cancer healing.
Absolutely. And I'll just second that, Bruce, and answer David and also Irene, who asks, could we heal even the most serious illness with the power of thought and not taking any drug at all? I think the answer to that is, what do you believe is going to work? That's what I usually say to people, because it's the power of your thoughts that are one of the most powerful in whether or not you get better or not. If you believe in a drug, in a particular drug with all your heart, you should take it. If you believe, I don't want that drug, you should follow that. But I can tell you, I have seen thousands of people heal themselves with the most serious illnesses. I've had 2 people get up out of their wheelchairs, one with multiple sclerosis, one with an idiopathic paralysis from the neck down. 1 10-minute intention with both of them, and they got up out of wheelchairs. I've had people cancer surgery after Power of 8 groups. I've had loads of people with cancer on my masterclass, Turnaround Cancer. Leandra, was getting power of 8 intention from her group in the hospital. She was in her hospital bed with very serious leukemia. Her family history of the same leukemia, father had it, supposedly a genetic disease. And she completely reversed it. She reversed it, and it is now, her numbers are normal. So I've seen it over and over again. Lori, who was going blind with detached retina, doctor said she would be blind in a few years. She's got 20/25 vision now. So I see this again and again and again. Now, so let's see. Okay, Bruce, what advice would you give to a very young person who is working on creating the life they desire, while at the same time their present environment is literally falling apart, like really bad? Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, the obvious thing is this: you can see the environment's falling apart. And there's something that they're called resilient wonders. And I say, what is they? These are kids that grew up in the worst environments in the world and became leaders in their field. Philosophers and healers and all kinds of stuff. And they came from the worst environment. I say, so what was the point? Well, you can focus on the environment and say, I am the environment, or focus on some part of that and become that environment. As I said, we look for the patterns in our family, mother and father, and we download those. So unconsciously, you see their behavior. Well, unconsciously, that's your program. And that actually works about 95% of the day, as you'll find out. So what would I do? And the issue is this: well, you have to change your consciousness and change your sense of focus of what's important. Yes, it's falling apart around you, but there are other better things to focus on. It's very hard, it's all falling apart. But I'm saying, if you buy into the story, you become the story. And it's really important not to do that. Now, it's really tough. What you have to do is then, as Lynn was saying, look, find a community of people that are in harmony with your thoughts. And just having one good friend who is in harmony with you is a very powerful place to be, because you can bounce these things off of them without owning what's going on in the world around you. When you own what's going on in the world, you become whatever that you bought into the story. You are now part of that story. The only way out of that story is not to buy into the story and say, how do you do it? And it's like, I'm separate from this world. I can see it's all crazy and the people around here. But if I could find one really good friend, 2, 3, 4, power of 8 people, they will change your whole life experience, because you'll have somebody to communicate with. Right now, it sounds like your community doesn't offer you anything that you want to be involved with them. And therefore, it's really your effort to seek a community that is in harmony with you, the good vibe people, the people that when you're around them, you feel good to be around them. This is what the resilient wonders did. They didn't focus on their people right there. They focused on being other people, being with other people, having other leaders in their consciousness, not buying into the story. If you buy into the story, you become a player in the story. That's the way the game goes. You have to change the story vision. How you do that? Find another community.
Absolutely. And, you can come on my community site, which is just on my website, join our community, and you can ask people to help, to either have you join their Power of 8 group, or you create one. Just advertise on the community saying, hey, I'm in this time zone. Anybody else want to be part of a Power of 8 group? Because most of my Power of 8 groups around the world, and there's tens of thousands of them, are virtual. They meet virtually. And having 2 of them myself that meet every week, I can tell you, particularly during lockdown, they were lifesavers. We met every week, and that was our intention family. And that is so, so powerful. One scientific fact that might be interesting for anybody going through tough times, they have found, and I love what you were sharing, Bruce, about these incredible young people who were resilient. They've found with kids, for instance, who have attachment issues because they haven't had a good family, that that can oftentimes really affect the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that attaches to all the major organs of the body. It starts at the neck and it winds through all of the major organs. And that controls our sense of fight or flight, when we're getting really stressed, or rest and digest when we're calm, etc. But there's also a third element to the vagus nerve, which is community and feeling really safe within a community. And a woman called Barbara Fredrickson from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, she's been doing studies looking at the power of small groups and positive thoughts, and found that can really heal the vagus nerve and this constant sense of stress and fight or flight. And also other studies have shown that when people come together in small groups, it can also even heal and create almost like a new attachment. So it becomes, again, an intention family. So that would be my recommendation for anybody who's had that kind of a bad, tough background, is seek a Power of 8 group, and you'll find it will be incredibly healing. Okay, let's find a few more. Somebody asked, how does the work of each of you overlap and come together? Do you have some thoughts about that, Bruce?
Well, it's basically, as I said, your book, The Field, talks about everything that I talk about in regard to the biology, and that's understanding that crosses the biology, the physiology, and the behavioral characters of our life. So that's why I'm connected with you as well in the beginning, because your story is really the story of what I've been trying to tell people from a biological point of view. You've been doing it from the physics and the field story. We're on the same path. We're doing the same thing. And so I am honored to be with you, because I like the way you present it to the public. And between us both, maybe we can help a lot of people get out of the misbelief that they're victims of a world out of control, when they're actually, quantum physics wise, conscious creators of their world.
Absolutely. And we just, I guess we're both troubadours out there trying to sing the new story. And we've got, as Bruce says, they're slightly different songs, but they really are talking about the same thing from just slightly different perspectives. And I'm always honored to share any kind of forum with Dr. Lipton. I mean, we did a course together with our dear friend Greg last year and the year before, and it was phenomenal. And I think we're going to be sharing the stage in Switzerland in November. Nona Blackwell, thank you very much for being here. She's somebody who's attended a lot of our events in the past. She says, I've been recently reading about the concept of Wetiko, the collective metaphysical mind virus, which is apparently making mankind devour itself. Would you both be able to comment? Well, I'd love to talk about that, and Bruce, you do so too. I mean, I've not heard of Wetiko, if that's how we pronounce it, but I can say there is a metaphysical mind virus, which is apparently making mankind devour itself. Number one, it is operating according to this false scientific story. That is so essential and so basic to why we are eating our own children now. We've been operating according to a story that tells us that we are separate, well-behaved objects operating according to fixed laws in time and space. And there ain't enough to go around out there, that life has to proceed through struggle. And I know Dr. Lipton did a whole brilliant riposte to Charles Darwin. And I tried to do the same in my book, The Bond. That story is false, but it's behind every aspect we have of competitive individualism, which is the way we have created our world. So we have created a false world. Everything that I see in the research I do demonstrates that we need to be much more of a connected community, and that's what allows us to thrive. And so what we need to do now is understand the new story, understand the story that we need to be told now, and that we need to adopt, and to propagate it and to tell the world about it.
Well, I 100% with you on that one, Lynn. Recognizing very importantly, remember I made that quote from the Jesuits, give me a child for the first 7 years, I'll show you the man. That didn't get lost in history by any means. People started to recognize, yes, how I program a child will determine the future of that child. And when we see an infant today walking around with an iPad, it can hardly walk, you're looking at some great programming that's going on. The programming, of course, was understood by those that were in power, how to keep power. How do you keep power? Well, you disempower everybody else with a program. And so we've been disempowered with beliefs that are actually counter to our survival. This is why the planet is now facing what is called the sixth mass extinction of life. 5 times in the history of the planet, life was thriving. Some cataclysmic event wiped that out up to 90%, and it started all over again. Today, we're facing what's called the sixth mass extinction of life, and it's caused by human behavior. We are actually killing ourselves and killing the planet. Not that the planet's going to die. Humans will disappear. The planet's going to grow right back again just without us being a troublemaker. The whole story is this. We've been programmed with a Darwinian belief, for example, which is based on the survival of the fittest and the struggle for life. And I go, well, that's what the hell kind of password is that to get into the game? It's a struggle, and you got to fight to be the fittest. It's like, no, we now know that's the whole Darwin story is completely wrong, that it's not based on competition. In fact, now science has recognized that the drive force of evolution is cooperation. Complete opposite. That the nature, the garden is not a battleground. A garden, by definition, is the height of full cooperation of every organism in the garden. That's what makes a garden. And yet we have been destroying the garden, not realizing we are the garden. And when the garden goes, so do we. And we're facing that. And so there's upheaval right now that says the programming of disempowerment. You're a victim of your genes. You're just a physical machine. There's no real energy involvement. And these two things have taken away your power completely. You are a creator. That is a truth. And you control your genes. That is a truth. But if you don't understand it and you're operating from a different program, then you're going to manifest that program. And these are programs of disempowerment. And this is the wake-up call. Whether I talk about it in the field of quantum physics and harmonic resonance and molecules over here, or Lynn's talking about it in the book, The Field, which covers the whole parameters of all kinds of levels of the field, we're talking the same game. And the game is simply this. We have been misprogrammed. And it's not an accident. I do not believe it's an accident. As people in power know, that control is the game and programming is how you get there. We've all been programmed. Well, guess what? Since it is programming, when you understand this, then you're the one that can be the programmer. You can put the program in that you want and change the character of your life completely, change your genetic activity, come back from cancer in a day. You can do all these things, but you've been programmed to be a victim. Oh, I'm powerless. I have no control. These things are more powerful than I am. And I go, yeah, once you bought that, then you have actually then said, I am a victim. And we have a world of victims, not because they're not powerful. It's only because their program has led them to a state of disempowerment. And it's a wake-up call. Hey, I have to tell you, look, the first 40 or so years of my life, I did great as a scientist, and I didn't really do that great in a personal level of my life because that wasn't my programming as a child. My program as a child was education and smartness, and I excelled at that. I had great research. I was a award-winning professor at a medical school. But my own personal life was programmed by my parents. Well, they were dysfunctional. So what do you think? My 95% of my subconscious programming running the day, 95% from that subconscious was replaying the programs that I didn't see. We don't see when we play the programs. I say, why not? And this is a really important part because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. I go like this. The conscious mind can think. I say, so what? I say, thinking is not looking out. Thinking is looking in. A thought is on the inside. If I ask you right now, I say, well, look, today is Thursday, and I say, tell me what you're doing on Sunday. Well, it may not be written in front of you, but in a moment, you probably think about what you're doing on Sunday, and you'll tell me. I say, where'd you get the answer? I say, inside. That meant when you were thinking, you were not paying attention outside. That is where the issue comes from, because science has recognized we spend 95% of the time thinking. I say, so what? Well, when you're thinking, let's say you're driving the car and you're thinking, and now guess what? You're not looking out the window. You're looking for a thought. I go, then, oh my God, that'd be a dangerous situation. I go, don't worry. Subconscious is autopilot. The moment you're not paying attention, the subconscious will take over and drive the car. Matter of fact, better than you probably. So the point is what? 95% of the time is what we're thinking. Then the subconscious comes in and takes over. I go, yeah, but guess what? You do not see the behavior during that time period from the subconscious. So let's say Lynn and I are having this conversation in the car, and we're driving and we're going back and forth, and it's great conversation and everything. And then all of a sudden I look out the window and I go, I haven't paid attention to the road for the last 5 minutes. I was so caught up in this conversation. So, I want to tell Lynn, hey, Lynn, guess what? Didn't even look out the window the last 5 minutes. So, but I go, so what? I say, somebody asked me, well, what did you and Lynn talk about? I go, oh, we talked about this and this and this and this. And then somebody says, and what was on the road when you had this conversation? You go, I have no idea. Why? I wasn't paying attention. The subconscious was driving the car. And I go, so let me close with, I want to use all these words as fast as I can, but a story that you might be familiar with. You have a friend, and you know your friend's behavior very well. And you happen to know your friend's parent. One day you see your friend has the same behavior as their parent. You want to tell them, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. Back away from Bill. I know what Bill's going to say. Exactly. Bill's going to say this. How can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. The audience laughs. They all have the experience. I go, that is the most profound story I can tell you. For what reason? Everybody else can see that Bill behaves like his dad. Who's the one that can't see it? Bill. Why not? Because he's playing the behavior he programmed from his dad when he's thinking, so he didn't see the behavior that was going off. And I go, we're all Bill. We are all Bill. We're running 95% of the programs. We don't see them. We see the results of the program. I say, what are the results? The character of your life. Oh, it's not working out so well. My life's not the blah, blah, blah. I'm having all this negative stuff. And I go, how'd you get there? And the answer was, oh, I don't know. I'm a victim. That's where the problem comes in. If you don't see you're a participant, then you must take the stance you're a victim. That person did this to me. That one did this. These people got in my face, blah, blah, blah. These people out here screwed my life. And I go, nope. It was your own invisible behavior 95% of the day that got you into that place. You created it. But we have to own this. If we want to own victim, then you can play victim your whole life. You can do that. It's not going to get you anywhere. But if you own it, there's an opportunity to change the program. And I say, well, what are the programs? And I go, basically, here's simple because of time shortage, but I'll give you a simple point about this. 95% of your life is the program. So here's the issue. The things that you like that come into your life and they're in your life and you like them, that's because you got a program to acknowledge those things. But in contrast, the things that that don't work for you, that your wishes and desires that are not manifesting. I wanted to be healthy, happy, relationship. I try and I can't get there. The issue is it's also coming from your own programming, that your programs don't support those destinations, whether it's a good job, whether it's good health, whether it's good relationship. You're struggling to get there. It's not because you can't get there. It's because your program is invisible and interfering with that destination. So look at your life. You struggling? It's not the outside. We have to recognize that's when we have to start saying, wait, I have been playing some program that has been disempowering me. And then that's when you get a chance to change those programs. And through Lynne's efforts with, the groups of 8, et cetera, there are access to change these programs. You have been programmed. That is a fact of life. Everybody's been programmed. There's no way you got here without the program. Are your programs good or bad? Look at your life. The good things that come in, they come in because you have a program to acknowledge those. The things that you desire and wish for but can't seem to find and you struggle with, it's not because the outside, it's because invisible programs are sabotaging you. And that's really the most important insight, because if you understand that, then I say stop looking to fix the outside and start looking at how should I fix the inside, because that's where the power came from.
Absolutely, Bruce. And I second that. With Heidi, who asked about struggling with fear of negative thoughts. Trying to force positive thoughts feels like I'm breaking the integrity of what my body is telling me through any negative thoughts. Feels like I'm breaking my own integrity by telling myself a lie. Well, one of the things I do on my Power of 8 masterclass is get people to become much more conscious of what they're thinking. You've got 70,000 thoughts a day that you think on average. And as I get everybody to start becoming much more conscious of how much of what they're thinking is just negative, judgmental, and harming, self-harming. And we start working on that. I also want to just tell you that one way that becomes so strengthening so quickly is a group. Now, one of our anonymous attendees said she was a little disappointed in me because she said if somebody's struggling, she thought that I said, just get over it. Absolutely not. I never say just get over it. What I say is get off of yourself for a while. Start thinking about this person over here or that person over here, because I have seen with thousands of people that when people do an altruistic act, it heals the healer. It heals you too, you the sender. There's something amazing and powerful, a mirror effect that occurs when you are focusing on someone else. Lots of the people who have asked questions about, can it heal this or that? Heidi asked, can it heal damage from COVID-19 shots? Bruce and I have very strong views about the COVID-19 shot. We're not going to necessarily get into, but yes, there have been many side effects with it. And it's like anything, any illness, group healing, group intention, changing your thoughts, all of those things can help heal anything. So whether it's COVID stuff, genetic, so-called genetic diseases, somebody else Jane asked about, she's very positive, she's very healthy, she's 70, but she's 6 stone overweight and has always had a weight issue. Now, I'm now watching what I eat and exercising. I've had numerous people in our Power of 8 masterclass, in our Power of 8 groups, who have had weight issues. I had one woman who was sugar addicted. And this was, I believe her name was Shelley. She was sugar addicted so much so that she would wake up in the middle of the night and eat something sugary. And it hyped her up so much she would end up sleeping in the afternoon, and it was affecting her marriage. It was affecting everything. And so with the group's help, she just was able to lose the weight. She was able to start meditating, start exercising, and her relationship with her husband has never been better. So I've seen that group effects. Also, I've seen people do intentions to find out the source of some condition, some issue. And that also helps too. Or doing intentions to find the best person to help them heal. That has helped many of my people. But I had somebody who had lifelong depression, Mitchell, who he was a clinical psychologist and integrative psychologist. So he had tried every alternative thing in the book. It didn't work till his group intended for him to find the source of this. And he got this intuitive sense he should talk to a Chinese herbalist who decided to check his liver filtration systems and discovered that one of them wasn't working. That turned out to be the cause of his depression. Toxins were getting through to the brain. As soon as he fixed that, depression done. So I can say hand on heart, I've seen so many illnesses get healed through the power of intention, particularly the group work, that I personally don't feel there's anything that can't be tackled if the intention itself isn't working. And by the way, somebody asked about muscular dystrophy. Yes, and also that's a good one too for finding the right practitioners. Numerous people that we've talked to and worked with have worked with body people like Anat Benyel, who does a form of Feldenkrais that has helped people with all kinds of movement issues get better. Dementia, somebody else asked about that. Also scoliosis. Somebody was in a group of mine and their spine started straightening in front of me. It was amazing. So I really can say that we've seen so many different kinds of conditions get healed when, as Bruce puts it, the program gets changed. So I'm going to say, let's answer one final question. And I'm looking, Bruce, for something that
While you're looking, then let me just bring up the question about overweight for a second, because there's so much concern about that. Because first of all, our lifestyle and our diet is really not supporting us really very much the way we've been living. But an issue about overweight is that, remember, we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the creative one with wishes and desires. And the conscious is the one saying, oh, I don't want to have this weight. I want to be thin. And I say, well, that's a wish and desire, conscious mind. It's really great. I say, but generally, there's a subconscious program. Weight is set by a subconscious program. It's like a thermostat. It has an adjustment. And I go, so why would I have weight on my body? What would be the reason? And the answer is almost always it is involved with safety. The people have been abused at some point, and the idea of being overweight is protection. Thicker I am, the more protection I have. It's an unconscious process. It has nothing to do with your conscious wishes and desires at all. And I go, the significance is, yeah, well, the conscious says, let's go on a diet and lose weight. And I go, yeah, that's 5% of the day that's really looking forward to that. And I say 95% of the day, the thermostat setting of how much weight I should have is coming from the subconscious, which will try to will challenge your conscious wishes and desires. That's why the hardest part of losing weight is, well, I want to lose weight because I want to be thin. I say, no, you want to lose weight because you don't need the protection. It's the protection part that was the reason for the weight. And if you don't resolve the protection part, then it's very, very difficult to lose the weight, because the subconscious is going to run this show, as I said, 95% of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So someone has, this is a good one. How do I, it's really hard to just pick them out, guys. We're having so many great questions and so many wonderful comments about this. Somebody has asked about focusing, changing addiction. And I think I'll answer that just based on my experience with the masterclass. We had a woman who was addicted to tranquilizers and could never get off of them. And with her group's help, she was able to lower her dose, and then she finally got off. Also, and a lot of people have asked about, what if you don't know about things that happen to you in programmed you when you were young because you just don't know. Again, part of our retro intention isn't necessarily going back to the first part, but getting to a state of recognizing disempowering situations. Let's say a teacher told you were dumb at math, made you stand up and hold your head in shame. We don't necessarily go back to the first time that happened, but if there is any point where that happened, doing a certain kind of intention, not changing what happened, but changing your power, your taking back your power, can completely change you. And we've found that in many, many of the instances that we do. I know, Bruce, you like Psych K too, if you want to just speak to that.
Well, what I'd like to speak to in regard to this is there's an old saying, don't kill the messenger over the message. I go, what does that mean? And the case that we're talking about right now is you can say, I have a problem with some kind of behavior. And then you say, well, let's go back and identify where you got this behavior from. That's the messenger. I go, the hell with the messenger. You already got the program. You don't have to go backwards. What you have to do is look forwards from the point where you're at. I say, here's where you are. Where is it you want to go? And I say, well, I want to, be successful at X. I say, well, then, okay, I don't care how I lost the power. I just have to change from now to the future. Going backwards is actually, unfortunately, reinforces some of the damn programs that you don't want to even hear again, to replay them. So basically it says, no, we don't have to go back and identify where it came from. You just have to identify where's the problem. I'm not healthy. I'm not having a relationship. I need a better job. And I go, oh, well, then you want to change that from here in the current moment. You change your program to look for to create a new program, not go back and try to figure out how you got the old program. That's wasting a lot of time and maybe making it worse. It's basically, what is it you want to change from here to the future? Then that's a new program. And the programming aspect at any level of it, to my perception, really requires you to have a very positive present tense version of what you want to be in the program. Not a future version. In other words, let's say I'm overweight and I say, I will be, I will get to be thin. I will be thin, or I will get healed from cancer, or I want, and I say, you're looking at a future and you're not saying you have it. The idea is when you put a program in, the program has to be as if you actually have what you want right now, because the secret behind all of this is the function of the mind is to manifest the program. So if it's a positive program, the function of the mind is to manifest the positive side. And if it's a negative program, it sure as hell doesn't care. It'll manifest the negative side. So the idea is, if you want to change a program, you use present tense, because let's just say today I record, I want to be healthy. I say, I record that today. That's my new program. I want to be healthy. And I say, okay, now let's come back next year and let's push the tape player and see what the player says. And this player says, I want to be healthy. I said, it's a whole year. You still want to be healthy. What was the point? It's not you want to be healthy. You have to say, I am healthy. I go, but that sounds so weird. And I go, it sounds weird, but the function of the mind is to take that as a program and manifest it. If I'm sick, but I'm programmed, I am healthy, then the mind's job is to correct the situation. So it's really important to my point of view, which is a little bit different, is I don't need to go back and find out how I got the damn program. The program is right in my face today. It is affecting my future. So going back is a lot of effort, but not necessary. You just have to say, what is it that I'm struggling with now? And then rewrite a program based on overcoming that struggle in a positive present tense. I think that's somewhat.
Absolutely, Bruce. And I think, these various techniques, I guess what we're really trying to say to everyone is, you don't have to accept a lesser version of yourself. You don't have to accept illness as inevitable. You don't have to accept depression as inevitable. A woman wrote to say she's a carer. She's joined my course, but she's worried about, when I use the term get off of herself, she feels very, very depleted. The beauty of a Power of 8 group, the beauty of community in general, is that you give and you receive, and particularly for a caregiver, you need to receive now. It's your turn. You've been giving out and giving out and giving out. But the point is, as we've been talking about, is we are quantum entities now. We are in a constant quantum state. That means life is malleable, influenceable, changeable. And that's our message to you, all of you, is that you can change. There are ways to change. You never have to accept the programs, the diagnosis, the prognosis. There is always the possibility of change, essentially in an instant. So before we leave you, Bruce, please tell everybody about your upcoming course or whatever it is that you've got going right now.
I have lectures going all the time, and with you and with Greg and Anita and my friend Shamini, a community of wonderful people. We talk about this all the time in different aspects of what? You are a powerful creator and you have no knowledge of it. And knowledge is power. So no knowledge means no power until we can give you the information. And fortunately, it's not just new age. Oh, that would be nice thinking. No, there's a science behind all of this. And it's not the science you grew up with. There's new science, and that's the new knowledge. And if you become aware of it, then you have power to change everything in your life. You can change everything. And you are powerful, except your belief system, your programming. That was the big part. It's the programming that you got in that first 7 years that is actually expressing 95% of your life. And that's why our conscious mind with great wishes and desires doesn't seem to match the program in many cases. And that's where we feel the victim. I want to have this, I want to have that, but it's not working. So I'm a victim. And I go, no, it's a program. And you can change this. I mean, I'm a happy guy. Just a happy guy. No, I learned how to change some of that programming. I was programmed for relationships by my mother and father. Quite dysfunctional relationship. What did I manifest for 40 plus years? Dysfunctional relationships. Why? Unconsciously playing those programs that I downloaded. And with the opportunity to change, whatever way you want to change, I changed it. I have been on a honeymoon with Margaret for 28 years now. Every day, it's exciting to wake up in a honeymoon world, a heaven on earth. It doesn't mean everything works for me, but love and harmony and all that's the most important part of all of it. And most of it is lost our love. And I go, how'd you lose it? I go, because a lot of us were programmed where we were criticized. That's the big issue. Not good enough, not smart enough, not deserving, not loving. These are parents. They were trying to needle us to do better, but they didn't understand that a child under 7 is not consciously understanding what the parents saying. They're just recording. Oh, not good enough, not lovable, not this, not that. And I go, and that's 95% of our life. And between whether it's energy psychology or the Lynne's wonderful circles, we have that power to take it back. And I can speak to that because for a guy who looked over for 40 some years, couldn't get a relationship, and now has enjoyed 28 years of a honeymoon, even wrote a book about it. The idea is we can all have that. Everyone can have this. And we just need to know, then why don't I have it? And the answer was not because you can't have it. It's because your programs didn't let you get there. Changing the program, personal empowerment. And my buddy Lynn over here, she's doing a great job, and I so appreciate being with her. And I actually appreciate being here with you. Why? Because this is an opportunity for all of us to get together and create something different. The world is in chaos. We all have to step out of that conventional world and start creating a better world because it's imminent. And there is a better opportunity. And Buckminster Fuller, the futurist, said, don't go in and change the old world, step outside, build a new one. This is why I so appreciate working with Lynn and my other colleagues, because there's a plan and we can get there.
You bet, Bruce. And it's brucelipton.com.
Yes.
For anybody who wants to find out more about Bruce, brucelipton.com. For me, my Power of 8 Masterclass 2023 is kicking off on February 4th. And for that, it's Intention Boot Camp. I put you through weeks of live and interactive webinars with me. I'm live, I'm working with you. And then I put you into Power of 8 groups of your very own according to your time zone and preferences. And we meet through the year with Intention Clinics. So essentially, I'm mentoring you for a whole year to change those programs and to create a happy, harmonious, and powerful life. So please check out all of that on lynnmctaggart.com. I'm also calling in all of my Power of 8 groups. There's tens of thousands of them. I realized I've got a little army of change makers here. And I know we've been talking about this. The world needs to change. The old programs are collapsing, and we are eating our own children now. We need change. And I've got that little army of change makers already. So I'm going to be providing people with free tools. It'll be kicking off in the next week or two. We want to start our own little peaceful revolution. So make sure to check it out on lynnmctaggart.com. Thank you, Dr. Bruce. It's always an amazing pleasure to spend time with you. And I also can say, knowing Margaret, that he is right. They've got a wonderful honeymoon going on all the time. So thank you so much for spending this time. And thank you, everybody, for being in conversation with us. We hope to hear from you soon and see you soon. Take care now. Bye, everybody.